My name is Shaun Femson. It was great to hear Philip talking earlier. I've been around quite a long time now. I co-founded one of the very early ISPs. We launched one of the first wave of global TLDs back in 2001. I've not much been associated with LINX, but I was there. I was present at the founding meeting of MANAP back in 96, 97. I'm here to tell you about the cooperative neutral host approach, which we are taking to the sharing of network access at layer 1. So if you take a simple three-layer view of the industry, which those three layers correspond to a value chain as well as parts of the network. And of course, in this country, it tends to be dominated by the open reach model, which is open at the top layer, at the service layer, but where there is a large amount of consolidation at the bottom two layers. And while I'm not involved in an ISP now, I can remember that when I was, what was key to us was the ability to be able to add value by getting further down that value chain, and the difficulty that we had in doing that. And I believe that ISPs, many ISPs wanting to grow, still have. I'm just actually come back from Sweden, where I was meeting with Stockab, which I work quite a lot with local authorities, and for local authorities that are interested in taking an active role in trying to encourage the development of their digital tech sectors, Stockab is something of a poster boy, because they started building their fibre network back in '94. And they very much took the approach, which is to say that they would build at the passive layer, at layer 0 and 1, that build the fibre network that would then be entirely neutral and open to the markets to exploit it in different ways. For example, you might have a wholesale operator that then offers active access to competing ISPs, or people that are more vertically integrated in that section. Working with Tameside some years back, we had a situation there where the local hospital had found that it was cheaper to build their own bit of fibre between their data centre and their disaster recovery centre than it was to get their usual provider to give them a point-to-point active link. So they built that fibre. And then the council, shortly afterwards, needed to re-procure its wide area network and found the exact same thing, that within 5 years, they were able, the cost, the revenue cost over 5 years exceeded, for a 10 gigabit ring, exceeded what they could do in terms of getting their own teams out, digging trenches and building their own fibre network to connect the towns in Tameside. Tameside, by the way, sorry, I should say, is it's the east part of Greater Manchester. So at that point, we then had a situation where the hospital had a bit of network and the council had some network. Why not join them up? Why not create some way that you could share access with other parts of the public sector and potentially with the private sector as well? And so that's what we did. We created a cooperative neutral host at layer 1 that is, we did all the legals. We lost quite a large part of my life going through the legals there to make sure that there was no subsidy, there's no grant of subsidy involved. It's simply a sharing arrangement. And effectively what you do is you create a single network, what appears to be a single layer 1 network, even though the assets belong to different people that are contributing to that. Now, just to make the point here, that the idea of having a neutral, not-for-profit body that mediates access to some shared assets should be familiar to everyone in this room, since essentially that's what LINX is as well. It's just that it's working further up the stack. And we think that there is great future for this kind of model. So using that model, we've expanded the network. I should make the point that this isn't a fibre to the premises network. It's a middle mile, really. It's for people to backhaul their own bits of network that they construct. It connects public buildings, but the state has not paid for, and the cooperative doesn't generally connect private buildings unless one of its members is ready to do so. So you can see the section there over towards the east of Manchester, but going into the main centre of Manchester, those of you who are familiar with it, places like Kilburn House and so on, with diverse fibre routes back into the centre there. And then Blackpool came along. It had built a fibre network in the tramway and extended it inland a bit. This was with some support from the government at the time. And they became members of the cooperative and are sharing access in a similar way. And also down towards the south coast in Brighton and running up to Crawley. A number of really interesting places to connect there. And most recently, we've just completed a new network in Lancaster, Morecambe and Heysham, where we will be building a new, very, very green, small data centre, including an immersion tank. So those are some of the members of CNI, and as you can see, it's a mix of public sector organisations, parts of the NHS, colleges, local authorities, but also a number of commercial operators and some dark fibre providers that many of you will be familiar with as well. And some of those bodies share both ways. They access and they contribute as well. Okay, so what's the relevance for anyone in this room? Well, I'd be really interested in talking to anyone. Please do come and speak to me if you're interested, for example, in accessing our Layer 1 products, which are very, very competitively priced because they're not for profit and which are entirely neutrally administered. Or maybe you've got a network. Maybe you would like to name our network as part of yours and your network as part of ours, and I'll come on to that. Or there is the possibility of co-investing and sharing, and I'll quickly go through those. So that's an example part of our network there in Sussex and Brighton. As I say, it's a middle mile network. You can then build out from it, for example, using OpenReach PIA. And we provide passive only. We are not going to compete with you. We'll simply give you fibre, co-location space for you to light it, and in some places we can also offer you space for antennae as well. And we only sell to members. If you want to use these facilities, you must be a member. Or, as I say, you could join your networks to ours. Maybe you want to experiment a bit in giving access to some of network that you have built at Layer 1, which is frankly the easiest place to share this kind of network capacity. That's an example of a connection we put together for the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. And you can see the different contributions from different members of ours to that network. A single connection put together from different providers. But I mean, lastly, I've been talking to prospective members of CNI for years now, some of whom would say, well, why would we want to share? Because we want to build stuff that then belongs to our investor. Well, times have changed a bit. And as the quote at the bottom says, there's a much greater emphasis on revenue now than there was before. And we can take some of the heavy lifting out for you. We'll deal with some of the middle mile and backhaul, leaving your investors to focus on building access network. But also the government has changed. And while we had a good working relationship with the previous government, the new one is coming in and is quite cross about the proliferation of polls, for example, which is causing letters to MPs. And that's why we're now working with Asset Hub on a solution so that, like the French system there, where you can see a shared pole, that's the sous-traitance d'opérateur commercial system, where they can switch fibres between providers at key points. A really interesting Gallic system, that one. Here, we're not going to get regulator support for that like they have, so we're going to build it ourselves from the bottom up. And you'll be hearing from Rob Leyenderts later about the Asset Hub model for accessing assets. And lastly, it's just worth noting, while I say we had good relationships with the previous government, the incoming government is committed to doubling the size of the cooperative sector. And we're a new and different way of doing cooperation. So we've got a lot of support from them as well. If you'd like to know more, please, I'm going to stick around. Please do come up and speak to me or write to me. Shaun@cni.coop, one of those TLDs back in 2001, or see our site, cni.coop. Thank you.
We'll just see if there's any questions. I think we might have a question for you. Hang on, Shaun. Yep. Yep.
Oh, thanks very much. Shaun, there's a couple of things sort of present themselves as potentially an issue here, sort of related to the cooperative nature of the project. First of all, does CNI actually impose or hold its members to SLAs regarding things like for repair and for repair and uptime guarantees? And secondly, does regarding the CNI's charging rates, say I'm EU networks or something like that, and I've put myself into the pool for say somewhere in Manchester, from an area of Manchester, and I've built out quite a large network, but no one else seems to be interested in building out their side of things. Am I allowed to charge differential rates for my fibre, or do I have to charge the same as everyone else per kilometre or whatever?
Well, that very much depends on you. Nearly all of the fibre that we rent out belongs to CNI, and we appoint maintainers. We're not like Openreach. We're not regulated like Openreach. We don't allow access to the local authority ducts, for example, that we'll put the fibre in, we'll splice you in. And that way we can keep control over that. Sometimes we do buy in a section of third-party dark fibre, in which case we need the SLAs to align. That's not difficult in my experience. In terms of differential pricing, any price offered to one member is offered to all members. That's an absolutely iron rule for the cooperative, as you would imagine. And that way people have confidence in its neutrality. However, sometimes you've got a complex route and you buy in what you can from a member at the price that they set. But of course, we always encourage our members to set a special price for CNI because of who we are.
Okay, hang on. Yep.
Thanks, Shaun. Matt Wilson, Baltic Broadband. I was just...
Hi, Matt.
Hi. I was just interested in how you administer the likes of fibre tax and just keeping, from an administrative point of view, who's been using, because of course, if you light the fibre, you pay the fibre tax and you're then obviously classed in terms of rateable occupation. How are you keeping tabs on that in terms of administration?
That we don't like fibre, simple as that.
But in terms of what members are using, what part of the fibre
That's
at
up to
what
our
times?
members to stay on the right side of whatever tax they need to pay.
So there's no registration on your side of who's using what? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's the questions. Thank you very much again, Shaun. Thank you for the presentation.